Pro player Joseph Ugarte made a very interesting post the other day on X comparing Mega Clefable to Togekiss. Now, just for some context, Mega Clefable got introduced in Pokemon Legends EA, which dropped last week, and it sparked a lot of controversy and debate within the VGC community on how good this Pokemon could be in upcoming title Pokemon Champions. A lot of players in the community are not sold on Mega Clefable due to the current existing Pokemon of Togekiss, which is a very similar Pokemon and fills the same role. However, Togekiss has not been legal in VGC for quite a few years since Sword and Shield, so there's been quite a debate online saying, is Clefable really good enough to hold a Mega Stone? Surely your Mega Pokemon could be a massive stat stick of a Pokemon that you should build your team around, instead of a supporting Pokemon that already exists in Togekiss. Now today I'm going to give my opinion on the whole situation. I'm going to give you a use case on why I think Clefable could be a very good Pokemon in Champions, in its Mega form, give you some ideas of how it would look like on a team. Now, just for some clarity, I do massively rate Joseph Ugarte. This video is not to say that they're wrong, I'm right. This is just to raise awareness and spark a debate in the comments, kind of understand what your opinions are on Mega Clefable as well. And of course, I could be wrong, I could go on to play a big stat stick Mega Pokemon and not bother with Clefable, but I do genuinely think it has a place in the VGC metagame. So, if you want to see more content like this, let me know in the comments, like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and we'll get straight into it. Okay, first things first, let's see the stats of Mega Clefable. We'll then compare them to Togekiss, talk about these Pokemon in a vacuum. However, don't take that too lightly because Pokemon VGC is not played in a vacuum. You're playing doubles Pokemon, usually built within a team composition, so there's always going to be other factors that play into this as well. So, as I mentioned, Togekiss has not been legal in VGC for quite a few years, and Clefable, or Mega Clefable, is the only viable flying fairy type, which opens up a huge sort of market for it to be used in VGC, and it is a incredibly unique sort of typing as well. So if you look at the stats here, so let's get Togekiss stats. So Clefable has more HP, Togekiss has more defense and special defense, and Mega Clefable has more special attack, while Togekiss is faster. So in a vacuum, Togekiss is the better Pokemon. I'll admit that straight away, Togekiss is completely the better Pokemon here. You have to use a Mega Stone on your Clefable for it to get these stats anyway. So where Togekiss could hold a Citrus Berry, a Wide Lens, it could be a sweeper, supporter. It can feel like a really unique role on team, and it is generally a better Pokemon. However, when there's Togekiss has not been released or announced for Champions. I've looked through all the trailers, I've seen all the posts. Togekiss has not been shown or featured as of yet. Therefore, this Pokemon does not exist. It is probably not going to get released into early Champions. Therefore, there's a big sort of gap here for Mega Clefable to be this really unique, very flying type that's going to offer the same role as Togekiss did previously, like in Sword and Shield, but in a Mega format. So what does this mean? How would this look for Pokemon Champions? Now, I do believe that Clefable, or Mega Clefable, is a fantastic partner for Garchomp. Now, Garchomp, of course, is a staple for VGC and is always very, very good in his regional decks, national decks formats. Just for some clarity, I think in a restricted format, Mega Clefable probably cannot keep up. But in early Champions, where we could see a format where only the new Mega Pokemon are played, especially in these regional decks, national decks formats, early Champions, we're going to see a lot lower power level. Therefore, I could see a massive opportunity for these two Pokemon to thrive. Now, what's the difference? Like, why are these two Pokemon really good together? Okay, I pulled up Maryland here, which is a team building website. Now, essentially, I pulled through Togekiss because it has the same typing as Mega Clefable. Now, we'll try and understand the synergy between these two Pokemon by just looking through this sort of defensive coverage chart. Okay, so Garchomp throughout the history of VGC has loved clicking Earthquake into everything, and it really appreciates having a flying type partner. Now, obviously, it's weak to Ice type, so if you have Mega Clefable on your team, you're also weak to Ice if you Mega it. But just having like a Fairy type Follow Me next to a Garchomp is such a good tool to have. Now, if you Mega your Clefable, you're now flying, which means you're immune to those ground types. You're also weak to Ice, but let's not talk about that at the moment. Let's just focus on why I think Garchomp and Mega Clefable have such good synergy. Garchomp, like I said, loves clicking Earthquake. That's his stab move with a Life Orb. It's doing a lot of damage, even neutrally, into a lot of Pokemon. Mega Clefable is a flying type. It can now use Air Slash, which is really good against those grass types, which resist the Earthquake. Clefable can redirect away Dragon moves, and it's just really good defensive, offensive coverage between these two Pokemon. So I think this is a composition that I really want to start mess around with early champions. Now, obviously, looking on here, it does have a double weakness to ice, but we can put in a Pokemon. We've seen this in the trailer already. Aegislash. Now, Aegislash is another fantastic Pokemon that could really benefit from Mega Clefable. You can lead it next to Mega Clefable instead, and not necessarily need to Mega it. So Aegislash, of course, is not very good against those Dark types. So what's Fairy Resist? Resist Dark. So you have a very good coverage between 3 Pokemon here. The resist, you have your Aegislash to resist the ice. It's somewhat bulky. You can switch it in on an ice type attack for these Pokemon. You can also lead it next to Clefable and have really good synergy here. Maybe like a substitute version of Aegislash. And then you've got a very good sort of Mega Pokemon next to it that can do really good damage. I just think like this core in general, obviously Fairy, Dragon Steel, also known as a Fantasy core, will always be good in VGC. This sort of core itself, they cover each other offensively and defensively. So I always think this is going to be a really good sort of go-to option for any sort of VGC fundamental of team building. But I just see a lot of potential in Mega Clefable and enabling not only other strong teammates, but also being a very offensive option yourself to Mega whenever you want. You can kind of see how your opponent reacts to your leads. You can kind of judge the position of the board state, and you don't need to Mega use your Mega Evolution, your one battle mechanic, your tool, your resource immediately and start attacking. You can kind of play patient. You can protect your Clefable, hit an Earthquake. You don't need to like Mega straight away. You can maybe fish for like ice type switches in, and then maybe switch in your Aegislash, or you can play it quite skillfully. I think a Pokemon like Mega Clefable does seem to be quite skill expressive, where in your base form you're quite supportive, but in your Mega form you're really enabling your partners as well. So I think this core could be really strong, and obviously I think if you look at this team already, I think something like Incineroar would be amazing. Just to like round out this team, like quite generally, I think this could be a really good composition. Doesn't necessarily have to be Incineroar, could be Arcanine as well, if depending on what Sneasel. But I think this core in general could be a really strong core to mess around with. Now, generally, this is kind of how I expect Mega Clefable to play in practice. I wouldn't take the EVs I've used here as gospel. I've kind of just spread the EVs across the bulk and put quite a bit of investment into the special attack, because it kind of plays like an Ogerpon. So Ogerpon is basically another follow me user. It does have the grass type, which does make it better than Clefable, because it can redirect those spore type users from your setup Pokemon or your main sweeper. But I think Clefable plays like an Ogerpon, has 2 stab type moves, has a protect, has a follow me, and look at these stats. These stats are really, really good. They're kind of crazy. And Clefable, like in a vacuum, does have a lot of good move coverage. You obviously can play it really supportive. You can put like a safety goggles on it if you really do want to play Mega. But I think in general, like follow me, you can do Life Dew. You have Helping Hand. So like in close team sheet, you could maybe lead something like this and Garchomp, or like Kangaskhan, or any other like really strong Mega, and you can kind of lead these two and make your opponent do guessing games. So I think Clefable could be a great Pokemon in close team sheet environment for giving your opponent these mind games. Like, is that Mega Clefable? Is that Mega Kangaskhan? They can only Mega once per game here. So what's the decision going to be? And maybe if your opponent plays a bit too safe against a lead like this, then they double protect. You could potentially get like a setup, like a bulk up, or a sword dance on your Garchomp. So you could really punish like defensive plays by like playing these mind games. Which I think Fable could be a quite good Pokemon in close team environment. But I do genuinely believe that this Pokemon does have incredible stats. Obviously, Togekiss does have the better stats, and it doesn't need to carry that Mega Stone. But Togekiss is probably not going to be leading the champions, not for a while anyway. So why not take advantage of that and play a very good Fairy Flying type that can really like give your team a really good composition, a really good backbone, and give you options to set up. You can give you options to outplay your opponent. Maybe force them into playing grass types, or like leading grass types against your Garchomp. Obviously play an Air Slash or like a really strong sort of coverage move on your Clefable. You can play Helping Hand as well. And like leading into the fact that you're playing like a balancy archetype of a Fairy Dragon Steel, within the Intimidate user. This is just basic VGC stuff, but I do genuinely believe that Clefable has a really good use case for VGC, especially in doubles as well. And also a big disclaimer, Mega Clefable's ability has not yet been confirmed. In fact, none of the new Mega Pokemon have had their abilities confirmed yet, so that is a big disclaimer. Any really good ability on Mega Clefable could absolutely shift things. Likewise, if it's not a good ability, then again that could potentially be a big hindrance to whether to play it or not. So the ability is going to be so important for not just Mega Clefable, but all the new Megas. So that's going to be very interesting. And if you want to see sort of my reaction and maybe my thoughts on how these Pokemon will look in VGC, definitely stick around to the channel because I'm going to be covering all those when they get released. Let me know your guys' thoughts. If you have any disagreements or if you maybe think I missed something, let me know in the comments. Also, subscribe if you want to see more content like this, and I'll see you in the next video.